I figured as much. I figured whatever Descaros was talking about in the last chapter was going to be more than just, oh yeah, we're homies now. It would have to be way more so story relevant, something that was going to have a lasting effect. As I just didn't see giving off a cliffhanger with a big like art spread with like that to be logical without it having a more memorable reason for it to be so. But we open up the chapter to where she's explaining that they're going to have a contract between them. It's a whole mentor pupil contract. I'm very curious as the origins of this, because it doesn't it goes like half of what I expected, and then kind of cuts off to where I figured the trade-offs would be, but maybe there's something that expands it later. I don't really know. It just doesn't seem very good. I don't know. The only way I could see it being beneficial in reality for, anybody in the magic world would be like, oh yeah, it's just a hard trade-off for becoming a pupil to some witch. I don't know, because it just doesn't seem like there's enough benefit going on for both parties. It just seems like too much high risk. But she's like just giving a quick recap about everything that's happened, and bringing up how she's the one that took him away from his home and brought him into all this, and now he has to deal with the world hater magic, and kind of taking just again a degree of responsibility for events that now Ichi is all tangled up in, and everything that his life now has to be directed towards. And he doesn't seem to really mind that, because I've mentioned that in the chapter where, I guess it was just 2 chapters ago, the whole bit where Ichi agreed to everything, there was some discourse online. It wasn't like a big issue of people saying that he agreed to it too fast. I don't agree. Based on his character of what we've been shown, the whole setup of him being in a, oh yeah, you're gonna be able to hunt this guy eventually, but in reality, like, you could die in this, or like you are gonna die in this, is just something that he's already had in mind about every single approach to hunting his prey. He's brought this up. So to me, it just makes sense that he would be like, oh yeah, like, that's not a problem whatsoever. Why would that be a problem to me? And after that point, it's like, okay, for stuff for anything with the Ichi that just logically, if you understand where he's coming from, he should just be able to, cutting to the chase is very direct, because he's just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go and try and kill one of these guys, or bring death in idea to some of these, not really death, but in defeats to the magics. The same way he's putting the same level of bloodlust and killing intent towards them, even though they're not going to die, they're going to get acquired. It's the way that you really think about that ebb and flow of the hunt. Once you look at, not just look at, oh yeah, you're just some guy, he's gonna go out and he's gonna shoot a deer. No, I mean, like, this is a guy that he goes into the scenario and thinking that I could lose this, I could be killed in all of these. So again, it's like, once he thought of going after the world hater magic in the first place, he probably already had all this in mind. So all it is someone assuring things that he'd already probably like come to terms with. So the whole bit in this, like, you have the whole master, or mentor, I guess it's the same thing, mentor and pupil contract, and there's like a magic like connection between them now in reality, in literal reality, but in display, that I was thinking was going to result more in, again, in some form of magic benefit, because we see that he now has to obey what she tells him to, and there's like a whole setup where it's like, oh cool, yeah, like he can do that. But the whole connection is that after that point, if the pupil dies, the mentor dies, which I feel is really bad, because if it was the other way around, where if the mentor dies, the pupil dies, it would make sense of why the pupil, then you would want your pupil or pupils to keep their master alive, keep their mentor alive rather. So in that scenario, it's like if it's more of like the setup of like, oh yeah, if I fail, I guess I just die anyway. It's rough. It just is a rough trade-off, because what, you're just assuring that you're gonna teach a magic for their servitude. I mean, it's not like you're essentially like a paid intern, because it's not like they can break this contract with you, because you do ultimately benefit because they're gonna mentor you in magic and all that stuff. But at the same time, it's just a really rough trade-off. I figured you would have some form of magic connection to where it would let you use some of the other person's magic to a degree. I don't really know, like, oh, I can lend you one magic a day, because you, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like the capacity, if there was like a way to do it. Like, oh, if you're X level, I could give you 2 a day. If you could go to this level, you could get 3 a day. You know, it's just like story explanation, power system explanation, tiering. It just goes into stuff to lay out like an idea of what's going on. But it's more of this direct, I guess, gain of having an intern, and you're gonna teach a magic and whatnot. If someone dies, you're just kind of gonna fall over. But I feel like for Descaris, it makes sense that she doesn't want him to go and just go towards this and sacrifice himself for everything, and she wants to be able to kind of be tied to this as well. Like, she doesn't want to just dump all of her problems on him and go and relax. She wants to be able to relax in reality, because I would assume that, like, in her mind, while all the problems are going on too, she wants to be able to kind of directly be involved in that. Because I don't think that Descaris just wants to be powerful for the sake of being like, oh yeah, now I'm powerful. I think she obviously wants to be the person to do X, Y, or Z and acquire certain magics. And I think that there's a level of flex of hers that is both in her ego, but is also honest. Like, she genuinely wants to do some of these things for the sake of it, but also, like, she just, the glory is tied to it. But as it were, she's, now that she's tied to him, they are family, they are connected, and I would assume that she's gonna have a nice time with it. I'm wondering if there's gonna be any plot moments for her where, like I mentioned in the last one, I thought it was gonna be more, oh, we're get a little bit of information about her brother, but that's something we're gonna get revealed later on. No, we got an understanding of her brother, and she didn't have a negative reaction. I'm curious, maybe this is like she'll have some form of negative reaction with Ichi later, and that's gonna be where that idea, like that whole twist instead goes, because she seems pretty happy about this. Like, she doesn't seem like giddy, but it's more of just, she, like, when she says she's glad that she does it, there's like a very, again, genuine level of like kind of bliss. Like, she just seems like happy, but she's like, yeah, I mean, this is what happened. I'm taking responsibility for the kid, and we're gonna get this done, but I'm not gonna let him do it alone, and I'm gonna make sure that I make sure that everything gets clear, and we get this all done. It just, again, it seems to be she wants to be involved, but at the same time, I just don't think that she wants to feel like she's there to be there. Like, she just, oh yeah, I'm just present. Like, she just wants to be, like, have kind of skin in the game. And on top of that, at this point, she's doing more for Ichi because it's getting to where she has now an obligation to help him in more ways than one. And on top of that, I assume there's going to be some ways that the contract is beneficial beyond this. And now we're getting moved over. They're going to go to a new place, like the land of Bakugami. I assume we're going to be getting some nice world building. But it says this whole bit of like, oh, you're going to go there and find a new companion. And the very next page, interestingly enough, it has a character that I assume is, there, for one, there's like the frog magic or something, and there's this guy that's telling the frog of how to acquire him. very curious as to whether or not this is a guy or a girl. The thing is, like, it looks like a guy from the further out frame because it looks more like the, pecs rather than boobs. But there's a bit where if you can see like closer up to the dude's face, it looks like he's got larger eyelashes, and it's like, okay, well, maybe it's going to be one of those female characters who just is very masculine looking and much more muscular, but is clearly a woman once you actually see her face. I don't know. This is either way. This is either going to be one of two things, because there was always the ideas like, are there other male wizards, I guess in this case, or witches, out there in the world that are going to show up in the story. If there's another guy, I didn't think that was going to be for a while, unless there's going to be a play into why there's like 1+ or more other magic dudes. But regardless of which, if it does turn out to be a girl and this isn't a guy, it should give me confirmation on one of my things in the verse that, I mean, I feel like it's kind of obvious, but the idea of a villain witch group and they're going to be doing whatever their villain witch group is doing and whatever they're after, I would assume logically, especially if the whole, like, the creators and stuff, they talked about being influenced heavily by Pokemon, so it's like there's got to be a bad guy group that at some point is going to show up and be like, "Ba-na-na, da-na-na," and they show up, do their whole thing, they suddenly are like, all right, we're gonna steal your magic, and maybe they have a way of like, if we defeat you, we can steal one of your magic that's in your magic circle, and you're like, oh shit, these guys are awful. You get away from it. That sounds like a terrible, like, imagine that as like an NPC in a game. They can take one of your powers until you have to go find them again. That would be awful. There's probably some game out there that I can't remember that they do that. But anyway, other than that, I'll talk to you guys later. This chapter read really fast. This one was really set on, like, to be fair though, I feel like everything, like I said, that this chapter was set on was stuff that I already assumed, just because I thought it made sense for the story, for how it was set up, for there to be some, again, pretty much like this. Again, I assumed there was going to be higher value to this contract. I mean, they mentioned that it might as well be a curse, or like some people call it a curse, so it makes sense. But I'm just like, damn, I figured you would some way be like, oh well, now I can use one of your magics. Maybe that'll be at some point where they can expand the contract, where at some point he can temporarily let her use Aurora, and she can just buff all of her magics. That'll be a super Deskros chapter. But anyway, other than that, I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Bye.